Thomas Jefferson is known in American history as a founding father among other founding fathers such as John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and George Washington. And the author of the Declaration of Independence was Thomas Jefferson. He was also elected the third president of these United States. His titles as a founding father, the author of the Declaration of Independence, and President of the United States are parts of his legacy. Now, there are other parts of Thomas Jefferson's legacy. He was known as an apostle of freedom because of his work with religious freedom in Virginia, as well as his convoluted relationship with slavery. In this video, I want to touch on the latter two parts of Thomas Jefferson's legacy, which are his work with religious freedom and his stance on slavery. First, Thomas Jefferson was known for his work with religious freedom in Virginia. In 1777, Thomas Jefferson drafted a document entitled "A Bill for Establishing Religious Freedom." This bill was a result of the Great Awakening in Virginia. Many biographers of Thomas Jefferson and students of church-state relations in colonial and revolutionary Virginia believe that the Religious Freedom Bill was the culmination of Jefferson's effort to permanently separate church and state, thus forever making religion a private matter. In his article, "A New Perspective on Jefferson's Views on Church-State Relations," the Virginia Statute of Establishing Religious Freedom in its legislative context, Daniel L. Dreisbach refutes this premise by stating that the religious bill must be interpreted in the light of Jefferson's complete legislative strategy to redefine the church-state government, church-state arrangement in Virginia. The Religious Freedom Bill was only the first of 5 consecutive bills in Virginia's revised code addressing issues of concern to organized religion. Therefore, to detach the religious bills from its historical context distorts the comprehensive church-state model Jefferson envisioned for his native commonwealth and the nation. Dreisbach states that Jefferson's chief aim was to promote freedom of religious expression, and if that objective was best served through statutory cooperation, religious liberty meant that the civil authority must refrain from interfering with an individual's religion except to protect the individual in the enjoyment of the right to worship God, or not, according to the dictates of one's own conscience. Now, the second part of Thomas Jefferson's legacy is his complicated stance on slavery. At a time when free labor was the norm, Thomas Jefferson's views of slavery was radical, for Thomas Jefferson was against slavery. According to Christian Daharkerskite of Monticello.org, Thomas Jefferson was a consistent opponent of slavery. Jefferson believed that slavery represented the greatest threat to the survival of new American nation. Jefferson also thought that slavery was contrary to the laws of nature, which decreed that everyone had a right to personal liberty. At the time of the American Revolution, Jefferson was actively involved in legislation that he had hoped would result in slavery's abolition. In 1778, Jefferson had drafted a Virginia law that prohibited the importation of enslaved Africans. In 1784, he proposed an ordinance that would ban slavery in the Northwest Territories. But Jefferson always maintained that the decision to emancipate slaves would have to be part of the democratic process. Abolition would be hindered until slave owners consented to free their human property together in a large-scale act of emancipation. To Jefferson, it was not democratic and contrary to the principles of the American Revolution for the federal government to ratify abolition or for only a few planters to free their slaves. He thought that his cherished federal union, the world's first democratic test, would be destroyed by slavery. To liberate slaves on the American soil, Jefferson thought, would result in a large-scale race war that would be as brutal and deadly as the successful slave revolt in Haiti in 1791. But Jefferson also believed that to keep slaves in bondage, with part of America in favor of abolition and part of America in favor of perpetuating slavery, could only result in a civil war that would destroy the Union, in which he was correct in his prediction. In 1861, the contest over slavery sparked a bloody civil war and the creation of two nations, Union and Confederacy, in the place of one. Jefferson's belief in the necessity of abolition was entwined with his racial beliefs. He thought that white Americans and enslaved blacks constituted two separate nations who could not live together peacefully in the same country. Jefferson believed that blacks were racially inferior and as incapable as children, joined with the slaves, presumed resentment to their former owners, made their deportation from the United States an important part of Jefferson's emancipation structure. The events of the Haitian Revolution and an aborted rebellion in Virginia in 1800 made Jefferson believe that American slaves' deportation, whether to Africa or the West Indies, was a crucial follow-up to emancipation. Now, what makes his stance on slavery complicated was that he himself, Jefferson, owned slaves. One slave in particular, Sally Hemings, were proven by historians and DNA evidence to have had a relationship with him, from which he had fathered children even. However, in spite of the controversies that were present in Jefferson's life regarding slavery, his conviction for the freedom of all individuals rings throughout history. Thomas Jefferson, as a nation's architect of freedom and independence, will always be a part of his legacy.